And welcome back, everybody, to another CBC podcast. This is the last podcast of the year and the decade. So we're going to end it with a different type of show here. Obviously, as you can tell just by looking at the topics quickly, we're going to be discussing the best of the year and of the decade. So it's going to be a pretty good podcast. You know, we obviously want you guys in the comments to let us know what you feel about each one. And we're going to kind of have a discussion here amongst why we picked something and, you know, the reasoning behind it, and it was, you know, if it was influential and all that. So that's going to be today's show. Then, of course, you know, we'll have some fun with this. And the spoiler cast for Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker will be the members' topic of the week. So you guys can expect that. And we'll talk about all that craziness in that movie. So with that in mind, thank you everybody that's joined the CBC membership this year. I'm not sure what we're up to. It's, I don't know, 100 plus somewhere's in there last I checked. It doesn't matter. You guys obviously are getting a bunch of content, the vlogs, audio commentaries, you know, just gaming videos, various things throughout the week. So thank you everybody there. And of course, this week I am your host, as always, Armin. I've been pretty much doing nothing. So that
Christmassy.
Yeah, that sums it up.
We did the gym.
Just working out. That's really because we've been eating kind of like garbage. But hey, you know, that's what you do during this time of the year. So with that in mind, this week coming up, it's obviously Christmas, which means there'll be a bunch of new kids with Call of Duty. So go on there and stomp them and earn that extra XP, because that's what I aim to do. So I'm going to be festive and all that. So yeah, that's what I've been up to. And of course, this week I'm joined by Mitch.
What's up? You can find me at Mitch692.
So
and I'm not going to be stomping Christmas noobs because I'm nice like that.
Are you going to be hunting the monster still?
I will. They brought out a new helmet, like a special festive one. It's like an anime scarf, like a massive red one. And it's like, I love this. Like, I'm weaving. King Weeb.
I need my scarf.
I literally look like someone from Attack on Titan with a giant sword. So.
Oh, that's funny. Yep. And this week also Shay is joining us.
Hey guys, you can find me on Instagram at Michelle1602, and I have just basically been working out and cleaning and trying to remember to do a post a day.
That's pretty much it. That's how it goes. So that's what we've been doing. Tristan, again, is not here this week. We know it's the holidays, so he's been
fighting the Christmas lizard people.
Pretty much, yeah. There may or may not be fires over in California. I don't know. It all depends on what flip of a coin it is. So he could be fighting fires and lizards. So you know.
Yeah, I think he's fighting both.
There we go.
Because the lizards are coming out due to the fires.
Yeah.
Damn. They're coming. The reptilians. They're rising. That's the next decade, man. It's going to be the rise of the reptilians. Just watch.
So Alex Jones is right.
He was right, apparently. There we go. There we go. End the decade with him being right on something. So, yeah, let's get into this. Our first topic is going to be the comic book film of the year. Now, of course, there's been a variety of topics and discussion in regards to all the comic book movies that came out, you know, like this year. And we've had a variety from both Marvel and DC, and even Sony to a degree. So that's kind of you know, putting their foot in there. So I guess I'm just going to start off with my pick for the comic film of the year, and that's obviously Avengers Endgame. Like, when I thought about it, yes, you know, I love Shazam, and I love Spider-Man Far From Home, like, to a crazy degree. But when I think of the one movie that literally comes this year and delivers everything it promised and more, I think this is the one. You know, it's like, I just, when I look back at the year, I'm like, what movie emotionally was there that people were invested in, that the biggest movie of all time, literally the movie that capsized the end of a decade of buildup. Like, what else are you going to possibly pick? You know, like,
I assume we're all in agreement on this one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, it's hard not to pick. You know, it seems like, oh, they were going to pick that. Of course, it's obvious. Well, it is a little obvious, but again, you have to consider everything it did. So let's just talk about Endgame then for, you know, a minute, and maybe some of the other films as well. So some of the other films that we had, like obviously Shazam was.
That's probably
one that
my
came
number
out.
2.
I
To
would
be
say that's my
honest.
number 2. Yeah.
Even though like I loved Captain Marvel, I feel like Shazam to me is like my number 2 because of the fact that it was so different than what I expected, and it was fun, and everybody agrees. Like a lot of people are watching it now and they're like, this movie should have came out this time of year, like Christmas, because it just seems like a better fitting Christmas movie.
Yeah, it literally is a Christmas movie. Like,
Yeah.
why you release it in the spring? I don't know. No.
And why would you release it literally 3 weeks after Captain Marvel, 3 weeks before Endgame? Like, it made no sense. So it suffered from that. Obviously, the other films that were there, who could ever forget Hellboy?
Oh jeez.
I honestly wondered where you were going with that. I completely forgot Hellboy.
How about Dark Phoenix?
I mean, I'd like to forget that one.
Yeah, same. Now, obviously, Spider-Man Far From Home came out as well.
Loved that movie.
I'm willing to say
I was honestly vying between Far From Home and Endgame for my favorite, but I just had to give it to Endgame.
Yeah, it's just Far From Home. I love in pretty much every way. Like it's without doubt, obviously my favorite Spider-Man film. Like it is. Like for live action, it 100% is. I can't not pick it because I love everything it did. So, and it also features my favorite Spider-Man villain. So naturally, it was going to be.
And in a perfect way, too. Like, the fact that they were able to give us Mysterio and make him modern, but not ridiculous, was phenomenal.
Yeah.
I mean, he was pretty ridiculous. Like.
He was as ridiculous as Mysterio needed to be,
Exactly.
right?
It's like,
yeah.
he had a fishbowl both in a mocap and in CGI. Like, that's kind
of... And just the film kind of went a few unexpected places, which I liked. Obviously, it does now, by the look of it, set up a good amount of the future. But like, when you think of like what Endgame had to bring to the forefront, wrapping up 20 plus films, calling back to so many different storylines, wrapping them up, sending new characters, to the forefront, taking older characters and literally putting a end to their stories, Right, like it was, honestly, it was the film I went into 2019 the most anxious about because I wasn't sure if they could pull it off because there was so much anticipation, right? Like, I think we all kind of felt that. It's like, how do you take on so much and try to do it again? And the fact that, in my opinion, they topped Infinity War is pretty impressive. Like, that's...
I'll never hold it against anyone for putting Infinity War above Endgame because it's close. It's really close. It's just it's personal preference. At that point, no real way to split them two up. Plus, they're kind of one movie anyway.
Yeah,
it sells things in between, but it's still they're one movie.
Just nobody wanted to sit for 6 hours straight in a movie theater.
I mean, people did the whole marathon, like the 24-hour one.
Yeah,
that's true.
They did it. I don't know how. Because I wouldn't have done. But...
No, dude, I can't even as a devoted Marvel fanatic do that. Like that's too much for me even. So, I think most of us will. Yeah, we'll go with this. I think a lot of people listening to this will also agree. Of course, if you don't, let us know down below what yours is and the reasoning why. And I'm pretty sure the next decade of comic book movies is only going to be even stronger. So
it's going to be crazy. It's like stopping and thinking about what we already know, and it's only 3 years into the
for Marvel
new decade.
and DC for the next 3 years is ridiculous, and that's
the scary part is you've only just really got started.
Exactly. Oh, it's what a time, and I think Endgame is a perfect cap end to the decade. So. Yeah, I think I knew we were all going to be unanimous on this one. So there we go. Our vote goes to Comic Book TV Series of the Year. Now, I thought I knew 100% what this was going to be going from this entire year once I watched it to, here comes November and here comes Watchmen. And then I saw Watchmen and The Boys had to get bumped in favor of Watchmen.
See, I was going to ask you, what was your second one? Because I think Watchmen's the obvious answer here.
Yeah,
what was the one that would have been before? So it was The Boys for you.
Definitely The Boys.
Yeah. Shay, what was yours?
Probably... I definitely loved The Boys, but I also really loved the last season of Runaways.
So good.
Especially because they did something I didn't think they would be able to do. In such short notice, they were able to actually wrap it up.
Yeah.
But I absolutely loved The Boys, and I loved Watchmen. Like, Watchmen just... I don't understand how they did that.
Yeah.
Like, it's like mine was going to be Umbrella Academy until Watchmen came out.
Haven't watched it.
Yeah, haven't
Have
watched
you?
it
Oh,
yet.
it's so good. Fantastic series.
I mean,
Came completely from nowhere, and it's just like, yep, that's the one.
Yeah, I've heard good things about it. We're gonna watch it, because it's on our list, so we'll get to it eventually. And I don't know, like, I think it's been a very strong year for comic book TV shows. Like,
Yep, definitely.
we had the ending of Punisher, which I thought was
Yep.
great. They actually wrap it up in a good way.
Was that this year?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We
I thought
also
it was December
had
last.
season 2 of The Chilling Tales of Sabrina. The
Oh,
Boys.
I thought that dropped the ball, that series.
We didn't watch season 2 yet.
We'll get
I say
to
you can kind of.
We
wait to see.
had Krypton season 2. We have the brand new DC original of Harley Quinn.
Oh, Doom Patrol.
I'll say Doom Patrol. Doom Patrol was my second before.
Yeah, Doom Patrol was high on the list, but The Boys and like everything else.
The Gifted.
I do want to. I
was going to say the gifted pause, just like
Yeah.
okay.
I do want to give a shout out though to the CW for massively improving Arrow.
Yes.
If you guys are members of the channel, we do it for the first tier there. We've been reviewing Arrow, and I quit out on that show on season 3 because it got awful.
Never watched it until now.
Like, they really found their footing, and the new season, the last season, is really just heads and shoulders like above anything the CW does. Which, depending on your take on the CW, you could take that as a, oh, okay, whatever. But it is a good show. It's not in my obviously top, but the reason I think we all agree with Watchmen is, for one, the moment I heard Damon Lindelof was on this, I wrote the show off.
Yeah.
Like everybody did. Like, it's like, dude, it's Lindelof. All he does is build up mystery, aka Prometheus. Then he just leaves it hanging and no satisfying ending.
Mm-hmm.
This is the most anti-Lindelof show I have ever witnessed in my life. Like, and not only that, he manages to tie social commentary and make Watchmen relevant today, just like the Watchmen comic was relevant back in the day. Like,
I say he uses like legit actual American history.
Yeah.
To make that relevant today.
Then
It's like,
what's
wow.
really scary is the fact that thanks to him talking about the Tulsa massacre, they actually went back and rediscovered how bad it actually was.
We're not going to go into all that here, but if you guys want to look up the actual history of what was said and what the Watchmen series caused to happen and what they've discovered because of it, it truly is a show that's actually changed America, and that's kind of crazy. Like, it's this comic book show that now there's going to be like a giant History Channel documentary on the cause and effect of it and what they discovered with the story they present in the first episode. Like, that doesn't happen a lot. And then the fact that they pitched it as, oh, well, it's just set after him. We don't know what you're going to do, but we know you all expect Ozzy in this. But Manhattan shows up, and there's ties to everything, and
they wrap every person's story up like in one way or another.
Mm-hmm.
And they talk about every single character. So, and they even go back and they go to the Minutemen before the Watchmen, and it's just everything about the show. Like, every time the credits would roll, we're like, no, keep going. Like, no. It was just a show that continuously had us at the edge of our seats, talking about it for days on end afterward, trying to figure out where it was going, and then come to find out, like, we were totally wrong about certain things. And then you go back and you try remembering some of the episodes, and you're like, wait, they actually told us the entire ending in the first 2 episodes.
Yeah, it's crazy. Unreal how good that show is. Like, I can't praise it enough, and I think it almost like it's one of those shows where I want more of this world, but I don't want it to get renewed because it's so good. Like,
I was gonna say, me and Sean were talking about this, and it's a case of we'd be happy with having a second season as long as the idea's there, but at the same time, it's like, do we really want one?
Exactly. Yep.
Like, there's so many places you can take it with that ending.
Oh yeah.
But don't need to. So.
And I mean, the fact that Damon Lindelof was able to write this show, be a producer on it, and they put it out in less time than it took for Jeff Johns to complete Doomsday Clock is something that is amazing. That is hats off to them for that show. HBO absolutely knocked it out of the park. And I'd be willing to say, as it comes down to like one of the best shows of the last decade, I think Watchmen would be in the top 5 with ease. It's top notch. If you haven't seen it, you need to go watch this show. It's worthy of attention. So that's unanimous again on best show of. Let's talk about the biggest news of 2019. Now, this is the one that changes, everything. The one that everybody was talking about. There's a couple obvious ones here. So, Mitch, what did you pick for the biggest news of 2019?
It's a hard one. I think I kind of have to just go for the Phase 4 announcement, because we knew nothing about that before. Like, yes, we kind of knew about Black Widow and Eternals, but outside of that, you didn't really know what and where they were going. Like, we still, even now, kind of don't really know where they're going. But it's like the fact that for once, they held back and just let that mystery ride until long after Endgame came out.
Yeah, the fact we literally had no idea after Endgame what was coming. Like, it's, I told a story on an old podcast. It's like people were literally like, "Oh, it's the end." Okay, huh?
Yeah, but at the same time, I kind of want to say Pattinson as Batman.
Yeah,
like, because that was huge.
Oh God, yeah.
I even sat there and like, when it comes to Pattinson, like one of our friends who watches comic book stuff, but not like as religiously as we do, she's even super excited about him being Batman, and she's like, I don't care for Batman, but I want to see him as Batman.
Yeah.
So it's like, that is huge news, because that can actually help redefine the direction again where DC can go.
Oh, yeah.
Like Shazam definitely did that. And then Aquaman and all of those films sat there and was like, look, we can add color. And now Pattinson coming in and where they're taking that is a totally new good direction.
They got Matt Reeves. If you've seen his Apes movies, like, the dude is, it's hard to say one of the best directors of the last decade or so, but he really has. Like, I remember when they announced, we're making Planet of the Apes prequels, everybody laughed at it. And then you watch those movies, you're like, oh my God, like, he made this thing relevant. Like, it's truly something that I can't wait to see. And I think Pattinson kind of is there as well. That was in my top picks as well. Obviously there was the whole Sony debacle. Had it not been worked out, I think that would have won. But since they worked it out for one more film, it's like, all right, that kind of fell to the wayside.
I kind of forgot about that because we got him back like a month later. So that whole entire month would just disappeared from my head.
Yep.
Just repressed memory.
I mean, the other good one, people, if you pick it, obviously it would make sense. But when we really think about like Marvel as a entity and Disney going forward, they officially bought Fox this year. But again, that's been in discussion for 2 years, so it kind of falls to the wayside. My biggest one that ended up winning is kind of to go off of yours, Mitch. You said Phase 4. My solo pick is Blade.
That was pretty big. Yeah.
I expected a Phase 4 announcement. We all did. But the fact that they brought out an Oscar award-winning actor.
Yep.
And then they're like, oh yeah, he's Blade, and Blade's getting a movie. It's like, it's the dude, it blindsided me. And, I'm like a Blade fanatic. So to me, it kind of brings it this full circle of when I first fell in love with the comic book movies was Blade 1. Like, watching that, I was like, oh wow, like, so these are Marvel movies, huh? Like, that was kind of big. So it's like, I don't know, Blade to me was kind of the standout this year. Like, when I just think of big news this year, I'm like, yep, Blade, that was it for me. Shay, what did you what do you think?
It has to definitely go to like where we're going in the future, announcing the next few years of everything Marvel. Even DC looks like they're getting off on like a really good foot when it comes to them and their new streaming services. So just all of the comic book in general news coming out is just making it so the fact that us nerds are having much more to be excited about, and in broad spectrums too, because you sit there and you stop and think, we talk so much about Marvel and DC, but there's so many other things now, thanks to their films doing so well, that are going to be coming down in the future. So just the success of both of those companies.
So pretty much all the big announcements.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. All right.
Say all of 2019.
I'll accept that as well. Because, I mean, when we reach to, let's say, like 2009, if you just take a decade back and you're looking at the future of comic book movies, you're like, well, there's apparently a Thor film in development and X-Men are, I don't know, and I guess...
Rebooting again.
Right, and like, oh, there's another Spider-Man, probably? Like, like... And now you're like, bro, we're getting, like, 9 movies a year. Like, what a decade it's been, you know? It's...
Also, I'm excited for all the attractions. Like that, the fact that within a year they were able to make and build Star Wars Galaxy's Edge.
Well, that was a pretty big announcement too. You know,
they announced it. They built the first phase of it. Like, just it is amazing time for us nerds to continue and broaden.
Yeah.
Also, an honorable mention just before you go off. I'm going to do this. Marvel TV closing down.
Yeah.
No, that's depressing.
We were just talking about that in the car.
Is it depressing though? Is it depressing? Because it's giving you what everyone wants.
Well, the thing is we actually literally were just talking about it when we watched the last episode of Runaways. It honestly broke my heart watching it. It's like, yes, it ended in a good way, but because of the fact that we're now no longer getting something different, like, yes, I explained it to this like this to Armin. We're getting something different because we are getting like horror aspects and that, but we're getting MCU quality, which, yes, I love that, but I also just loved how down to earth we had Runaways and Cloak and Dagger and those shows.
I think it's what you're trying to say is you like different voices contributing to the bigger picture, and I'm kind of like that as well. That's how I feel about it. Like, Marvel TV, to me, it's like I'm forever gonna miss it because it was different people, not just Kevin Feige telling everybody how to do one thing or another. And I trust he's going to be able to handle Marvel TV, the new iteration coming down the road, in a great way. But it's like the fact that all these shows just kind of ended, which I loved Cloak and Dagger, loved Runaways, you know, Daredevil and all that. And I know the Netflix stuff wasn't him. That was all Netflix. But it's like, what a rise and fall of Marvel TV in 7 years it's been, you know? Like, it's crazy.
And Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., like, yes, we knew that they kind of needed to finally end, but the Ghost Rider series now not coming, and the last season of Runaways literally was like, oh, we can tell where everything was going in the future, and then they were like, nah.
Yeah.
Bye.
I'm going to say it for Sean, because I know he'll be screaming at this. Just because it's gone, in the sense that he had it, doesn't necessarily mean it's the last you're ever going to see.
Yeah, exactly.
No.
Like, I was telling
Daredevil is going to come back.
Oh, guaranteed.
I can guarantee with the same Netflix stuff, but I have, like, just this really inkling feeling that we're done with the Runaways and
so here's the, like, it's going to be a cherry pick situation. Obviously they're not going to take everything one for one. Like, you might get Cloak and Dagger in the same way, you might not, but the last of the characters, no, not at all.
Like, I was telling Shay, it's like I could see, like, after, you know, Fantastic Four happens, they do, I don't know, maybe a Disney Plus Future Foundation show, right, or something along those lines. And they're like, oh, there's a very smart scientist here. It's Professor Chase. And it's, you know, Chase from Runaways or something. He's like a guy building stuff. Yeah. Like, I could see things like that where you bring in these characters and you don't have to explain everything, but we know as more hardcore fans who they are. I think in that way they're going to use some of them. But it's like, I'm just bummed that we went from this heyday of Marvel TV where it was like, oh, man, there's so much. And now it's just like, oh, it's all just going to Disney Plus. And it's like, oh, man, you know. It was pretty big news. Like, it was shocking that it's all ending, but I'm hopeful for the future, but it's going to be certainly different, you know?
It's like a bittersweet future.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's the future that everyone wants. Like, everyone wanted the crossovers. You're now going to get the crossovers.
Yeah,
it's kind of more what it's for. Not like, yes, they're wiping the slate clean of it, but, you know, just because they cancelled Ghost Rider before doesn't mean they're still not working on Ghost Rider.
Right. Exactly. I mean, yeah, that'll happen. So, that's our picks for biggest news of the week or the year, really.
Yeah.
So,
So biggest news of the week, there was none.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So
nothing.
They're the best comic book films of the decade. Now, this one is going to be a bit longer because we actually went year by year and we picked one for every single year. So how we're going to do this is we're going to start at the first year. So we're going to start at 2010, and we're each going to, name which one we picked and why, and maybe have a little bit of a discussion. There might be some crossover there. I assume there will with a few of them. So I guess I'll start this one. So for 2010, I picked Kick-Ass. I honestly loved that film. I thought it was different. It stayed faithful, yet changed elements of the comic that I thought they were like, we won't focus so much on this. And what I like is that they're not so much like cynical towards superheroes in the movie as they are in the comic. Because the comic is a little bit more like, no, superheroes are terrible. And if you look at who writes it, it makes some sense.
I was like, it's very. Who is it? Mark Millar. That's the one. I was going to say Frank Miller, and I was like, it's not Frank Miller.
No, it's hardcore Millar.
You've been mistaken for thinking it's Frank Miller, just how cynical these books are. But it's not. It's Mark Millar.
So to me, 2010 was Kick-Ass. How about you, Shay?
I would have to agree with Kick-Ass, but right underneath was The Losers. The Losers to me was just something that when I saw that it was based on a comic book, I was like, wait, what? And I just loved the chemistry of all the actors in it.
And what a cast. My God.
Yeah, we had Chris Evans and stuff like that in it. But it does go to Kick-Ass. I absolutely love that film. It's a film I could watch over and over and over and over again. I actually just recently watched them, and I feel like that helped me like re-love everything about it. And I also just loved Chloe. I'm like, there's this little BA like girl out there that can actually be this BA in real life.
Pretty awesome. And what'd you pick, Mitch?
I picked the correct answer, and that's Scott Pilgrim versus the World. So yeah,
I did love that movie.
Same.
It's so good. Like, it's literally the perfect example of compressing like an entire run into a movie. Like, you could use this movie as an example for, like, anime movies. They always try and condense the entire show into an hour and a half. Like, you do it like Scott Pilgrim did it. You cut out all the fat, you put all in there. It's peak Edgar Wright.
Oh, it is.
For one. Like, Edgar Wright's a fantastic director. The cast is great in that movie. It's literally virtually one for one the book, or the books, because there's multiple of them. Mm-hmm. And I know it was so different, and I didn't realize it was a comic at first. Back then, I was in the lull with comics. I hadn't been reading for a while. I've been watching like the MCU movie. That's about it. But like, that movie got me back in with everything. So
it's a manga, not a comic.
No, it's a comic. It's Western.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, it's in the style of a manga. It's by Oni Press, but it's a Western comic.
Oh.
All right. Well,
just because it was in the style of a manga is what it. But no, that is also another phenomenal movie. Like, I love watching that over and over again.
Yep.
But I had to go with The Losers, just because.
So then, let's jump to 2011. Mitch, what was your pick for that year?
Totally Green Lantern.
Oh my God!
I'm skipping this year.
You're skipping 2011.
I'm skipping 2011.
All right.
So you didn't like Captain America?
I like it. I honestly can't sit here and say it's my favorite. It was a very meh year. Like, Thor was okay, Cap was okay, Green Lantern was terrible.
Yeah.
Right? Whatever else Green Hornet came out in 2011.
And Ghost Rider: Spirit of Vengeance.
Yeah. See,
First Class.
All right, Shay. So what's your 2011 pick?
For me, it's my guilty pleasure is Spirit of Vengeance. I'm just saying that right now. Just because it's Nicolas Cage going like extremely crazy. But I have to say it's between Captain America and X-Men First Class. I have really enjoyed both of them because First Class, I feel, was a great way to finally reboot X-Men, or at least kind of give us a retelling and potentially of the same future. Mind you, it's the good one, and then everything else goes slippery down sloping from there.
You still haven't named one.
I said it's both of those.
Okay, so we're tippy-topping now.
Yeah.
Fine. Shay's picking one for me since I've
there you go.
All right, so for me, the obvious pick is First Avenger, but it's actually First Class.
That surprises me, actually.
It's First Avenger to me is like, that is my favorite MCU film. but I can admit it has those problems, and it's like, it's an okay movie, but you can admit that an okay film is your favorite one. But First Class to me was the one. It's like, look, they took Magneto, my favorite X-Men character. They got one of my favorite directors, Matthew Vaughn. He was on like a 6-month, like, put this entire thing together, shoot it and put it out on no money, or this franchise is just going nowhere. And like, the fact he pulled off anything is a miracle.
And then the franchise went nowhere anyway.
And it went nowhere because he was booted for the diddler. So, that tells you that. So yeah, X-Men First Class, which brings us to 2012. This one, I feel like it's going to be unanimous.
No.
But is it? This is the, because I've been thinking about this one. I don't know if I'm curveballing people here. But...
All right. I'll go first, I guess. 2012, The Avengers. I don't know what the hell else I can tell you. That it's the movie that defined the decade. Literally,
it's true. It
changed perception of movies going forward. I couldn't pick anything else. Just by looking at it, I'm like, I can't. That's it.
Like, I can agree with that. But personally, like me, I loved Dredd. Dredd is that movie that I watch over and over again. I loved Carl Urban's entire performance in it. I also, though, like those type of action movies. It was dark and gritty, and I felt like, I'm like, oh, look, it's basically our world, but not our worlds. I love the Avengers to death, but for me, when I have to sit there and I look at all the movies that came out that year, I watch Dredd more than I do the Avengers. And I like it that little bit more. It's my pleasure.
I have to agree.
Oh!
No, I sat there for ages. This is the hardest year for me. Like, just flip-flopping between Dredd and Avengers. But I think, like, what Avengers did for the mainstream comics, Dredd did for indie comics.
Oh yeah.
And, like, also, like, just comics in general, like the comic movies. We don't see his face for the entire film.
Yep.
You have that issue in Avengers. It's not really an issue, but you see the actors' faces. But it's like the Mandalorian now. Like, you don't have to rely on the actor. Well, you have to rely on the actor, but like, you haven't got the face and name recognition. You just have the character of it.
Yeah. For me, it was the pure Hollywood changing aspect that picked it. And like, it's the fact that at the time, Shay and I both worked at Best Buy, and Best Buy, the managers were like, no, what we're doing is we're buying tickets to everybody working, and we're bringing everybody because this movie's changing the world. They literally brought like 60 people that all work there, like all of us as a group. Like, let's all go watch Avengers. And like, it was people that were like, there was literally people there that have never seen a Marvel movie. They had no idea what Marvel was, but they fell in love with it, and they're like, now they're there every midnight opening. It's like, I've never seen a cultural shift like I did with that film. And to me, it's the only reason. I will agree, if it comes down to what I like more, Dredd wins. But I just went with Avengers for the whole cultural impact. Like, I never expected the thing, I loved and was made fun of 5 years prior to be the most popular thing in the world. That's kind of where I came from it. So
yeah, I will agree that if we had to look at all films within this decade, the one film that changed our society is
Joker.
Is the Avengers.
Well, I guess with that, let's go to 2013. Mitch, what was your pick?
Controversial one, Iron Man 3.
Hey-o, that's where I'm at.
It's a masterpiece of a movie.
Yep, same.
How people didn't like that, I will never understand. Like, that movie is literally an onion. It's got layer upon layer to it.
It does. I don't know what more.
There's not much else to say. Like, it's literally, one of the best movies they've made.
The Mandarin. Well, if you read what the Mandarin is, and if you look at him in this, I mean, yeah.
I was gonna say, like, they use about 5 different versions of the Mandarin in this. So
yeah,
no.
They did the same thing like they did with Whiplash. They melded the best parts of him
different. Yeah, Shay, what was your pick?
I loved Iron Man 3, but I also loved Kick-Ass 2. But when I put both of them recently rewatching them, I have to go with Iron Man 3 more. I liked Kick-Ass 2, but rewatching it recently, I'm like, it's good, but it just couldn't pick that same charm as the first one did. Yep. So definitely gonna go with Thor: The Dark World. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, Iron Man 3.
I will say, in close second to me is The Wolverine. The only reason I am ticked off at that movie is the cut scene of the Wolverine suit, which he gets in the movie, it's handed to him in the briefcase, and then they completely cut the next scene where he looks at the suit. Like,
I'd say, is that the only reason why?
I love when it goes ham Silver Samurai. I love Silver Samurai.
There's a samurai? I thought it was a chrome turtle.
Well, I love it. It was so good. Which then, okay, so we're unanimous on Iron Man. 2014. So this is the one where this one took me probably the most.
The moment I got clarification.
It's,
yeah, I found this one quite easy.
So
but I'm heavily biased with this one.
Okay, so when Mitch says that, it's quite clearly Guardians, right?
Yeah, it's Guardians. Yeah. I waited for that movie for years. No, I was one of the 3 people that knew about that franchise. That had actually read that franchise. No. I loved it.
To me, it's the obvious one. In my opinion, the best actual film in the MCU. We're going with Winter Soldier. I just don't know. Like, I had many doubts, like many people. The Russo brothers, the comedy guys? Wait, modern day Cap, the Winter Soldier's coming back. How's the action going to look? How do you make that spangly suit work? Like, how's this tied to the modern... They pulled all of it off. Like, I couldn't...
Yeah. And say what people owe that movie is... Like, just the MCU as a whole.
Yep.
Like, you'll never be able to repay that. But that changed everything. But...
And, like, I could go back and say Guardians is tied. If I really wanted to, like, pick one tie for this decade, it'd be Guardians. Because it's like, look, that movie changed perception of what you can make a success out of anything. And Kevin Feige was like, no, we got James Gunn, this dude you've never heard of that makes obscure horror stuff. And, this property that 3.5 people have heard of, but it's going to be a franchise that topples Superman in box office. Who would have thought that?
Yeah,
but there it is.
And by the way, we have Bradley Cooper as a talking raccoon.
Yep. And Vin Diesel as a tree.
Yep, and we sat there and got a wrestler to actually learn how to act.
Yeah, and he's good at it. Like, it's... Yeah, Guardians and Cap. If you pick one of those, I 100% could agree with you. Now, Shay has the weird pick here.
I do. It's because I love this movie so much. Kingsman: The Secret Service. Mind you, I do love...
Was that really 2014?
It was.
Wow, I thought it was way later than that. Or sooner than what we are. No, that's nuts.
Mind you, I absolutely loved Guardians. Personally, like, if I have to go with the MCU version of movies, it would probably go more Guardians, just because I loved how fun and everything, and I loved Groot so much. But when it comes to movies that I can just watch over and over and over and over again, it goes to Kingsman. Like, I loved everything that movie did. I loved the action. Matthew Vaughn freaking kills in that, directing wise, and I started following for freaking Eggsy because I absolutely love that.
Taron Egerton is an amazing actor. He is
just a phenomenal actor, and it's continued. His success in this, like, has continued his upwards. Yes, I do like Robin Hood, so you shush
I like
about
Robin
upwards.
Hood. I like Robin Hood.
But yeah, that is actually my movie.
Now, just a quick shout out to Days of Future Past and TASM 2 for absolutely killing my love for 2 franchises I
love. What about the Rogue cut? Because that also came out that year.
But that was the Days of Future Past.
Oh.
See, you confuse them because you don't care.
No, I don't.
Exactly. Let's jump on to 2015. Hey, 2015.
It's a unanimous. Come on, you know what you loved that year. It is the one movie that gives you the most amount of PTSD ever.
Oh God, yeah. Who can forget Fan 4 Stick? But no.
I honestly thought you were going to say BVS. I didn't even think of Fan 4 Stick.
Well, no, dude. 2015 to me, Age of Ultron. What else can I say? I love that movie. That's my.
You do.
It's my favorite MCU villain.
It's one of the most underrated.
It is.
I have to go with AntMan. The fact that you sat there and Marvel was able to make a guy whose name is AntMan so successful and popular, as well as just how amazing Paul Rudd is, as the role, and just the chemistry between everybody in that film. I love. Ant-Man, and I love Louise. He's like my favorite, and then he became Dora's father.
Well, I mean, if you remember, Ant-Man was the flavor of the week, as a famous director once said that was going to go nowhere. Oh. And, well, the movie in 2016 that he put out went nowhere.
Well, an ultimate lesson in counting your chickens before they hatch.
Yeah.
Yep.
No, I could go between Ant-Man and Age of Ultron. I love Ant-Man, but Ultron, I know to me and Mitch, we've discussed this on the audio commentary and stuff. Like, I can't... Every time I watch that movie, I love it more. It's just...
Same.
Oh, it's so good.
But great,
I had to give it to Ant-Man.
Oh.
I had to agree. I love it. I would die on that Age of Ultron hill. But Ant-Man had so much going against it. Like, A, it's Ant-Man.
Everything.
Yeah.
B, it had a great leave, which, that was huge at that time. It was the first real thing like that for Marvel Studios. It'd been in development for what? A decade, if not more, at that point. God, yeah. It's the movie that stopped Janet Van Dyne being in the Avengers, and I still can't forgive him for that. But
yeah,
the fact that it turned out good, as good as it did, it's just a fantastic movie.
Agreed. So with that, let's go to 2016. Now, 2016 was a monumental year. Like, you had so much. We had Civil War, BVS, Deadpool, Doctor Strange, Suicide Squad, and X-Men Apocalypse, among other things. And I guess I'll go first on this one. This one was probably the toughest year I've ever had to pick of any, because I love Doctor Strange. Civil War brought in Black Panther and Spider-Man, which was huge. But to me, some people might not suspect it, but it's Deadpool.
Really, now that is surprising.
That when I
genuinely shocked me. I almost fell off my chair.
I know a bunch of listeners too are going to be confused. Now, hear me out. Deadpool, the story behind how this movie happened within itself is amazing. Like, the whole it's never going to work, even though you shot the test footage, we don't care. And then it got out there through a leak, which seemed like a marketing tactic, PR type of thing, which was smart.
Yeah, that was Reynolds. That was 100%.
And then, like, the feedback, and then getting to that stage, and then getting a director who worked on, like, video game cutscenes for, like, the Arkham game to come in and, like, direct this film. Blur Studios, Tim Miller, and having him fully unhinged with Ryan Reynolds and Fox being like, you know what, you have $65 million, we're cutting $15 million the day before you shoot. Find a way to fix this. Just that the fact that the movie worked, and the fact that it was like, you know what, rated R comic book movies can work, and so can horror and this crazy action and stuff. I give it to that. Like, don't get me wrong, I love Civil War. It brought us Spider-Man, Black Panther, but when I thought about it, Deadpool just completely blew me away in the most unexpected way. So that's my 2016. Shay, what do you got?
It's a toss-up between Doctor Strange and Deadpool. Deadpool just literally, I didn't think that they would be able to do what they did. They just literally made a character that everybody, like, there's a huge cult following behind, and they were able to quadruple the amount of people who love that character now. And the fact that they were able to do exactly what you said, they made a rated R Marvel movie, basically. And we finally got redemption for poor Ryan Reynolds being Deadpool, and the correct Deadpool, especially after having him like horrible-ified. But also Doctor Strange, just because the visual of that, like, he's a character personally, I'm like, God, you have such a stick up your butt. But just, I went into that movie, was like, I don't think Cumberbatch can do this. Like, I don't see Cumberbatch.
You were pretty much everybody with Pattinson was you with him as Doctor Strange.
I really was, and the fact of how amazing that was, like, that movie changed my mind on Marvel castings for life. I can't doubt where Marvel is going now and who they choose and why. And that's why it goes a little bit more to Doctor Strange than it does Deadpool.
Mitch, what do you got?
I'm going Civil War.
Yep.
That movie made Iron Man right and made Cap the villain, so yeah, I have to give it to that.
Get the hell out of here with that.
I mean, it's true. Stark was always right in Civil War, and now people know it, so it's fine.
They don't. He's dead because of his beliefs, damn it. And who's still alive?
Because of Cap's beliefs, that's what it is.
Oh. Well, you know what else died that year? The DCEU.
Oh,
with BVS.
I mean, in defense, that wasn't the year that killed it. This is the year that injured it.
Yeah, that's true. It was like a wounded staggering through the woods.
It's like the Monty Python sketch. It's like, you got no lower half, but you still got.
Oh, that's a tough one. Which brings us to 2017. Speaking of no lower halves, where the second part of that came out, which was Justice League: The Death Blow. But that movie had that year had quite a few big movies. Sequel to Kingsman came out. Wonder Woman, which put the DCEU on a huge path correction.
Yeah.
Spider-Man: Homecoming, the first solo outing. Logan, Valerian, which I did like, but it's not worthy of the same mention.
No.
I guess we'll go with Mitch first. What did you pick for 2017?
I went with the obvious one. It's Homecoming.
Okay.
Is why would it not be that movie? Like, it's the one thing people have wanted for years.
Yeah.
Or since like Spider-Man 3 came out, so it had to be that movie. It's just too good. It's like the perfect one of the perfect Spider-Man movies, because there are two.
There are two, yeah. That is true. Is the other one Spider-Man 2, Mitch?
I was gonna say,
silence is exactly what I want.
Technically, yes.
Technically, yes, but it has a subtitle.
It does, yeah.
Okay, Shay, what did you pick?
This one was hard. Because it's between Homecoming and Logan for me. I almost want to say Logan a little bit more. Mind you, I love absolutely everything Spider-Man. And I loved Homecoming. I love Tom Holland. I love how they were able to bring two rivaling companies together to talk and be able to produce this film. But when it came to Logan, that was a movie that made me cry. And it gave us the perfect ending for a character who has been around longer than the decade. Hugh Jackman has been Wolverine for so long, and to me, this is how you perfectly end X-Men. I don't think there was ever a movie after this movie.
Oh, there definitely wasn't.
Until Marvel makes one.
Yeah.
But Logan, it did something that I didn't think could happen, and that was you killed a main character and you kept him dead. Mm-hmm. Two of them, actually, because you also killed Patrick Stewart.
I mean, to be fair, they killed all of them.
Yeah, that's true, yeah.
They killed everybody. And it was just monumental, and everybody talked about that film for so long. So it's literally like just point above Homecoming.
So, I mean, it was an interesting year of 2017 because Justice League came out, and that was the other half of the stumbling person in the woods just completely croaking over and, dying. So that did what it did. Wonder Woman, had it not had that third act, would be my pick, but unfortunately had the third act it had, so it ain't getting that pick. And it was tough for me because Spider-Man in the MCU, oh my god, like it's happening, and I love that film. But then Logan was like, after discovering Blade and all that early on, X-Men was the next thing, and I remember all the hype. I remember picking up the video game that had, I think it was Marvel X-Men Battle something, or Academy or something, and having the movie suits in there, and I was so hyped. It's just remembering all the good times, with X-Men, I have to pick Logan just for the reason that I love what that movie did, and the fact that it seemed like Fox didn't meddle with it at all. It seemed like a complete film that didn't cater to anything else anybody was doing with the X-Men movies. I'm like, you know what? You deserve something for that. So, but literally, Homecoming is right next to it. But, it is what it is. That's kind of how I just ended up picking it. So, yeah, I had to go with that one for my own personal one, just because. But, yeah. Yeah, so 2017, interesting. Mitch, anything else to close on?
No. I mean, it's a tough one, but it's
yeah.
I just have to give it to.
Yeah, I could go with Spider-Man. It might flip any day of the week you ask me, depending on how I'm feeling towards either character. So,
I say I had to rule out Logan because I can't rewatch that movie.
Oh,
I love it to death. I just can't rewatch it.
Yeah,
it's heartbreaking. Like, but I feel like it's such a perfect send off that's why I'm like, it's just that point, that little bit more for me.
So, with that in mind, let's go over to 2018. This was a tough one. I guess I'll go first for this one. It came down to the obvious one, Infinity War or Spider-Verse, and I gave it to Spider-Verse. For one specific reason, that I never thought Sony could pull this off in such a way and make such a grand concept actually work. And I'm only picking Infinity War here because, as I said earlier when we did some other discussions, I see Endgame, part 1 and part 2, they're kind of like the same half, and I like the second half more, which maybe tips my hand off towards next year. But I don't know, Spider-Verse to me was just like, it's a film, the soundtrack was amazing, the CG, the characters, the design, everything just clicked for me. I don't know how to describe it. Like, it's only like it narrows out Infinity War by a small little margin. So that's mine. What'd you pick, Mitch?
I would have gone Spider-Verse, but I think the third act's way too clunky.
It does
be my favorite because like the whole marketing thing for that movie was there's multiple Spider-Men and we bring in the majority of them and then they leave.
Yep.
And they do nothing. It's just like, oh, fair enough, but it's still a really good movie. Going off of the whole Infinity War and Endgame or one movie, you can kind of see my next two because this one's Infinity War.
Yep.
It's the beginning of the end of something you've never seen before, really.
Yep.
Something that's never been done in this industry or anywhere. So I don't know. It's just kind of hard to put into words for this one. They just nailed it. It was so different and like the impact that had.
Yeah.
Like, it's been a year and 6 months, a year and a half, and people are still talking about that movie.
Oh God,
and everything around it. Like it's crazy. Like you don't get that for a lot of things. So.
No, and I think I know Shay's, but
yeah, it's Into the Spider-Verse for me. Like, I knew going into Infinity War that I was going to really love that movie. Mind you, I hated the way that it ended because I'm like, it literally took my breath away for a year and a half. Just finally got it back. And but Into the Spider-Verse was something that I didn't think it would be as stunning as it was. And I personally I listen to the music almost daily. I can sit there and watch this movie at any time. I'll be like, I need to watch a movie. I'm going to watch Into the Spider-Verse. I actually think I watched it twice within 1 month of each other because I love every aspect of the film. And just the story behind it. The fact that Sony was like, no, we don't care about this Spider-Man movie. We only want to focus on the Emoji Movie, and totally bit themselves when it came to that. And
I mean, the Emoji Movie made money. Made more than Spider-Verse, I think. So
well, Spider-Verse was a better movie. So.
It's true, it was.
But yeah, I will have to give a honorable nod though to Venom coming out that year.
Oh, really?
Only because I did not think that movie would actually be decent.
But was it?
It was.
It was a movie.
It was decent.
It was literally moving images. That's something.
Yeah, it qualifies as a movie. So then with that, let's end it with 2019. I have a feeling we're unanimous here. It's a film that changed society forever.
Yeah.
Avengers
Joker.
Endgame. I mean, I think we're all picking Endgame, right?
I was going to say, it's all Endgame.
Is anybody going to argue anything else here? Like,
mind you, I loved also Far From Home, and I loved Shazam and Captain Marvel, but when it comes to a movie that has literally, people are still talking about today, and it came out earlier in the year, and has redefined where we're going as a future, it is Endgame.
I mean, if you think about it, the seeds for this movie started with Iron Man 2 that started the decade. And 9 years later, we get it. It's like, what? I I don't know
I
how
mean,
else...
Iron Man 1 started.
Even, yeah, like there were pieces there that they started laying the foundation in. So, you know, and then you obviously saw the pieces with Thor and Captain America and then the first Avengers and then the cosmic side. Like, it's literally a tribute to everything that came before with the comic book movies before. Like, I don't know how... Like, there was no question in my mind. 2019, I didn't even have to look at any single list. I knew it was this movie. No. Like, it's...
So I started my list with this one.
It's the obvious choice. I don't know what else you could say. Which, you know, with that in mind, since we're all unanimous on there, I guess that was our picks for every movie for comic books for the decade. So I think we're good with this one. I do want to do something a little bit different here, which I did ask members of the CBC page what is theirs. So we did get a few responses here. So John, of course, John, frequent contributor on Twitch and everything. Thank you also for being a member. He said it's Shazam, and to him because it's the turning point of the DCEU.
That is true.
And relating to the whole foster family aspect, the broad appeal there, and just talking about how it represents a modern family with culture and skin color and all that. And honestly, you know, seeing him post, I'm like, you know what, I could agree with that. Like, if you pick that, Shazam really is a turning point, I think, in DC for what was allowed, and like it had a smaller budget and everything. Delton H, who of course is a member as well, he says maybe Avengers Endgame, and because the MCU helped shape it into, you know, what it is today, and helped shape him into who he is today, because he's watched it, you know, his whole life pretty much, you know, what, you know, like most of us did, like the last 10, 11 years. So, and pretty much everybody else from the Marvel Fanatic to Infinity Wash to H Streets, everybody picked either the first Avengers or Endgame, and pretty much for the same reasons we've all discussed here. The interesting one, I know Mitch, obviously he mentioned it for one of his years, but Corey Greens, who's a member, says Guardians of the Galaxy. It made me love the MCU and space operas, and you know, I think Guardians has a good argument to be a movie that also, like Avengers, changed perception, because I remember us talking about Guardians is so good, the new Star Wars has to live up to Guardians, and I will argue that they probably haven't. Like,
I don't know. Like, I think because Volume 2 was kind of divisive.
Oh, it was, but Guardians 1.
Admittedly, it's the same as Star Wars, but Guardians 1 is, you know, it was billed as this generation Star Wars. I think it might be safe to say that it is. Obviously, it hasn't made as much money as the Star Wars, but you know, it's very close between the two.
Right, and here's a good one. Geese Studio says, entirety of the MCU throughout this decade really redefined how I view comic books and the superhero genre from a storytelling perspective, and continues to inspire me with how I want to write my own stories. I think this decade has done a fantastic job in providing the merits of the superhero genre and how culturally of an impact it has. And he goes on a little bit, talks about how it's impactful on the whole of entertainment and everything, and how, you know, Kevin Feige made the MCU possible. Again, I don't think anybody's going to disagree with any of these picks, and majority of them are the MCU, because I really can't think of anything else. Like, how many franchises tried to mimic the MCU and Avengers and failed right out the gate? Like,
I mean, all of them.
All of them, literally. So that shows you the impact of that franchise. So that's it for our comic book movies of the decade.
The one thing everyone can agree on, this decade for movies has been really unique.
Oh, God, yeah. Oh, my God.
Whether it's Marvel, DC, or whatever your preference is, it's been a very unique decade for movies.
Yep.
And that's a really cop-out answer.
Oh, yeah. But you can't disagree with it.
It's true.
Exactly.
Movies of the decade. Now, this isn't just, you know, like, like comic books like we just did. This is going to be completely different. Like, this is... So many movies came out from different genres and stuff, and I know most of us, like myself, I favor the sci-fi genre, so I mostly stick with that. So what we're going to do is go down a couple of, like, maybe, I don't know, 2 to 3 at once to really go down of why we picked them, maybe pick one to focus on. So I'll start with my 2010, 2011, and 2012. So in 2010, I picked the film Troll Hunter. It's unique because it's like a handheld camera film, and it's a foreign film, and it's about these people investigating real appearances of trolls in like Sweden or something. I don't know, but it's just wholly unique, and it's one of those films that I'm like, man, when I think about folklore and stuff and folklore films, Troll Hunter is always on the top of my list. And I know the U.S. has wanted to remake it. That should probably never happen because it has already an English dub, and it's a great little unique movie that if you haven't seen Troll Hunter, you should watch it. For 2011, I picked Rise of the Planet of the Apes. I mean, it made Planet of the Apes super like relevant and brought that franchise back after like Christmas with the Apes and other dumb garbage that they produced with that franchise. So let that be an indicator of what they did with it. And then 2012, the movie that changed everything, we talked about it in other topics, but The Avengers was my favorite film of 2012 for all the reasons we've talked about. It changed Hollywood from this moment it released until the end of the decade, and it keeps influencing the next decade as we see. Like, you can't go wrong with picking The Avengers. So those 3 years, well, what do you have, Mitch?
2010 is Scott Pilgrim again.
Yeah.
No, I am going to cheat on that one. 2011 was Super 8.
Oh, yes.
I just love that movie. You know, it's J.J. Abrams, it's Spielberg. I don't know, it felt like not quite like a modern day E.T., but in a sense, kind of like a modern day E.T. You know what I like
equate that movie to? It's Stranger Things before Stranger Things claimed 80s glory.
Yeah,
that's what that movie is.
The best. Yeah, that's a very good way of putting it. And my 2012 is Zero Dark Thirty.
Oh, okay.
I love that movie.
Huh.
I absolutely love that movie.
Yeah. Wow, that's interesting. I did not expect that. But Shay, what do you have for 2010, 11, and 12?
All right. So when it comes to 2010, this one is actually a little bit hard for me. I am a action person, but I'm also a Disney lover. So I'm actually doing 2 movies because they're very different. I'm doing my Disney movie pick, which was Tangled. I absolutely loved that film because it was a very different type of princess film, and it kind of redefined how they were going to start going with Disney princesses. And then my favorite action movie of 2010 was The A-Team. You guys can laugh at me all you want, but I loved that movie.
Yep.
I used to watch the old TV show randomly, and I loved every aspect of that film, and I could just watch it over and over and over again. When it comes to 2011, I also do love Super 8. It was just such a different film. I haven't rewatched it recently.
Same. I haven't watched it since it came out. No.
Yeah, but I absolutely loved it. But I also loved Bridesmaids because it was something that I did not expect to come out and just be a really funny movie. I also just really love musicals. And then when it comes to 2012, I loved, again, I'm doing a Disney and a non-Disney, Wreck-It Ralph. Loved that movie to death. But also The Hobbit came out that year. And The Hobbit, I loved the original Lord of the Rings. And The Hobbit just allowed the expansion of that world. And I just loved every aspect of it. It was beautiful.
Okay. So that's some good picks. Definitely we're varying up a little bit. So next we're going to do the triple pack of 2013, 2014, and 2015. I'll go first with 2013. My pick is Pacific Rim.
Obviously. I've seen that one coming.
I literally saw that film, Shan. I saw it 8 times in theaters. It still holds our record. We literally
half their box office is you.
Yes, it really is.
We could not stop. Like every weekend, we're like, let's go. Oh, we had a Tuesday off. Oh, let's go watch Pacific Rim. Like,
we also went with like other people because other people were like, "Hey, let's go. What good movie would you guys say? Pacific Rim. Let's go."
All right, we're joining you. Like, okay.
Have they asked you that question since?
No,
probably not.
No, nobody's asked.
Oh, that explains everything. Obviously, Pacific Rim, my favorite director of all time, Guillermo del Toro. He gets to smash giant dumb robots together with giant dumb monsters. That's all that movie needed to be, and that's all it was. 2014, Ex Machina, starring Oscar Isaac, who goes on to become Poe Dameron. Slow science fiction movie about the rise of artificial intelligence. If you haven't seen it, I highly suggest you go watch Ex Machina. absolutely love that film in every single way. First time I saw Alicia Vikander, who went on to play Lara Croft. She's a tremendous actress as well. Like, that movie encapsulates what I love about science fiction. And 2015, as there was any doubt, if you know me, Star Wars The Force Awakens. Like, it's Star Wars. I can recall every single moment in my life where I watched a new Star Wars movie, how it relates to some important moment in my life. That movie had a huge just factor in pretty much everything. Like, I can't not say Star Wars. So with that in mind, what do you have, Mitch, for those 3 years?
Right. Now, I'm going to cheat with release dates because UK and US have different release dates. So 2013 is going to be Her, the Walking Phoenix and Scarlett Johansson AI movie.
Yep.
Love that. If you haven't seen it, watch it. It's fantastic. Probably the most emotion you'll get out of Scarlett Johansson in that movie.
Huh?
2014 is tied between Whiplash and Birdman.
Huh?
I can't choose between, like, that year during the Oscar season, I just couldn't split them apart, and I still can't now. Like, they're vastly different movies. They're made completely differently, but they're nigh perfect, bar one or two things for me. And 2015 is Ex Machina.
Yeah.
Like, that movie's like straight in my top of all time.
Same.
Fantastic.
It's unreal how good that movie is. I honestly,
and how it looks.
Oh god!
Like, for the budget it had and the CG they got in there, it's not even fun. It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's like, beautiful movie. So.
Yep. There we go. Shay, what do you have for those 3 years?
I'm actually gonna go backwards with this.
Okay.
Because I do agree with Ex Machina. I absolutely loved that movie. You were like, you have to watch this. You have to watch this. But I also really loved and cry every time with The Good Dinosaur that also came out that year. It was just a really different type of film that humans were not the focal point, and I really appreciated that of that film. And then
the story behind that movie is, my god, what a story.
So never watched it.
I really liked it.
It was so good. When it comes to 2014, I really actually appreciated Lucy.
I like that as well.
Same.
Lucy was a film that I was not expecting. Everything that Scarlett Johansson was able to do in that film and like evolve to being this entity. It was just something out of left field that I really enjoyed. And then also for 2013, I have to go Pacific Rim. Literally watched it more times than we could ever count. And even after, and we had for months upon months after that, the Pacific Rim soundtrack would be always playing.
Oh my god, yeah. Love it. So, yeah, that's those three. The next up, we're going to do 2016, 2017, and 2018. Mitch, you want to start us off with yours, and then we'll go down?
2016, I Have Arrival.
Ooh.
Love that movie. Fantastic. Like, obviously, I'm very much in the realm of sci-fi with this list.
Same.
But I expected nothing from that movie, and I got far more than I ever thought. And I don't know, it like, for a movie that's very like monotone in color, like, it's just, I don't know, there's so much in there, like, just to like have the story of everything. It's just a beautiful movie. Love it to pieces. 2017, I've got The Shape of Water.
Oh.
You know, that movie, again, another one I wasn't expecting much from, but it just, I'm not going to make the blew me out of the water pun because I'm not that person. But 2018, I got Annihilation.
Well, that's
Natalie
from
Portman.
Yep, from the director of Ex Machina as well. So pattern there. Yep.
There is like an Alex Garland theme. So
dude, that movie was just amazing. Annihilation was just, I can't even.
Stunning.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's a good list. Yeah, can't go. I will not argue any of that. That is a solid list. Shay, what do you have for 2016, 2017, 2018?
Okay. So I'm just getting up my lists here. So I have 2 movies for 16. And I'm not even going to talk about the Disney one that I loved that year. But 10 Cloverfield Lane.
Good movie.
It was a movie that I love the original Cloverfield. And the fact that they kind of tied it in with Cloverfield in like this anthology type of way, and just the acting and everything, like you could not actually predict the ending because you thought it was one thing and then it came out to be something totally different, and it was just phenomenally done. Another movie that came out was Don't Breathe. A lot of people probably didn't watch it, but it's Stephen Lang being this BA blind guy, and
he's old Matt Murdock targeting kids lost in his apartment building. Yeah.
Yep. Well, 2017. There's 2 films. Baby Driver.
Yes.
The soundtrack. I just recently watched it, and how perfectly they're able to put the music to the movie. It's just unreal.
I mean, never bet against Edgar Wright. The dude is a genius.
It's a technical marvel as well, then.
Yep. Oh, definitely.
And also Get Out. That was just phenomenal. And then 2018, there's again 2: A Quiet Place and Hereditary. Hereditary just changed how horror can be looked at. And A Quiet Place the same way. Like, it literally got rid of a sense, and the fact that you can watch this entire movie and it's so quiet and eerie and works.
Mm-hmm. All right, well, that's a solid list. 2016 for me, this one was really hard, but it came down to Moana. Gets my number 1 pick.
I see, that's the one I chose not to do.
That's literally like... Everything else is pretty much sci-fi, but Moana is my favorite Disney animated film. Like, I love everything about that movie. I can't really put it into words, but it's one of those movies that I don't typically carry, like, oh man, I don't know what happens. If I have my phone on me, I need a bunch of films. All the Star Wars, a bunch of MCU films, and Moana. That's what's on my phone. That's literally my list. I love everything about that movie. 2017 was another tough one, but I went with Blade Runner 2049.
It's a really good movie.
That is a phenomenal movie.
Really good movie.
I love the original Blade Runner as one of the absolute best films of all time. It's in my top 5 films of all time. This was a sequel that is mind-numbingly slow, but it captures the spirit of Blade Runner in every possible way. And if you say, oh, Blade Runner didn't need a sequel, it didn't. But this movie respects that, and it does its own thing. So,
and hot take, I prefer it to the original.
Whoa! I could see why, honestly.
I think it's a better movie.
I could see why. And 2018, the only year I will tie ever picking a film, Ready Player One.
Oh, I forgot about that movie.
I love the hell out of that film. It's one of the other films I carry out with me all the time. I can literally just toss it on at any time, any moment, and just watch it till it ends. There's never a single moment I'm bored, because it's everything I love. Action, science fiction, video games rolled into one thing, and it kind of depicts...
And the music.
Yeah, and it depicts what the future of gaming is going to get to in like the next 25 years, which is kind of shocking. But the other one is Hereditary. It's the only movie where still literally I'll wake up in the middle of the night, and if I can't go back to sleep, I just think about that movie for no reason.
You and Adam both.
Like, it's seriously, I literally text my friend Adam, I'll be like, it's 3 a.m. I'm like, so I'm thinking about Hereditary. Man, how about that moment? Like, it's always on my mind, no matter what. It's honestly, I can't describe it. If you haven't seen it, watch it and know you're in for just your mind getting warped. And I won't spoil anything, but good God, does it go insane places, and Jesus Christ, what happens in that movie. So, yeah, just watch it, and you might be as shocked as I am, which then brings us to 2019. I guess I'll just start this one off because it's the most obvious, but to me, it's Avengers Endgame. It's... I don't know what else I could pick that doesn't encapsulate why I love the last decade. Like, if it wasn't for Marvel kind of redefining where film is going, it's just... It seemed insane that we were going to get to a point where we could have all these films that go to this one moment and deliver it. And when you're sitting there in the theater and Portal starts to play and every single character enters the screen, you realize that everything you've grown up with the last decade is suddenly a reality. And then the way it unfolds, like, it was literally like flipping through the pages as a kid, as a comic, just coming to life. I can't explain what that movie did to me emotionally. Like, it's just, it had to be Endgame just for that sole reason of that. Like, was there better movies that I enjoyed more? Yeah.
Midsommar.
But, yeah, Midsommar is my actual favorite movie of the year, but Endgame to me sums up every single thing that could have possibly happened that I never expected. It's like, it's a love letter to comic book fans everywhere. I don't understand how you could say you're a comic book fan, watch Endgame, and not like it. It just, you don't like comics then. That's quite literally what that means to me. Like, that's literally it. Shay, what do you have?
2019 is way too hard for me to pick. I agree with everything you say about Endgame, but I feel like there were so many other things that helped broaden like my visual of what I think movies can become. Like, I loved Midsommar and Us. Both of those were like two very different but amazing horror films. Detective Pikachu, just I did not expect that movie was going to do what it did. I was very hesitant in watching it, and just loved it though. And then, like, John Wick and Alita Battle Angel. Yeah. Like, both of those are action films that are in two different spectrums that I absolutely loved. Like, if it wasn't for John Wick 3, I wouldn't have started loving what John Wick was. We both sat there and started watching the trailer, and we're like, we have to see this movie. What is this about? And we watched 1 and 2, and we were just blown away. So when it comes to 2019, there's just so much that I loved that I actually can't really pick a favorite. All
right. That's a fair pick. Mitch, what do you have?
Well, I'm kind of in a similar vein, but I haven't watched everything I've wanted to watch this year, so I don't think it's fair if I did pick one.
Yeah.
So, like, I suppose if you had to have an answer, like, Endgame probably is the placeholder, but I know for well it's going to change.
Yeah.
Like, stuff like Jojo Rabbit, you know, there's Ford versus Ferrari that I haven't watched, or Le Mans 2064, depending where you are in the world.
The Lighthouse, and we haven't
watched
The
Lighthouse,
that.
Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, I need to see. Like, there's too many movies this year that I think have a shot at beating Endgame for the overall movie of the year. So, like, it's a bit of a cop-out, but that's, like, unfortunately my answer.
I want people to know Endgame is not my movie of the year. I don't think it's the best movie. Like, there's definitely movies ahead of it. But to me, it sums up, like I said, like the
I'd say it does a lot. There's a lot of, like, sentimental stuff with that movie as well.
Yeah. Like,
wouldn't be here having this conversation if it wasn't for it.
There is literally fans of this podcast who said, like, I got emails, they're like, I started listening when I was 13, and I found you guys when you were first talking about Captain America, the first Avenger coming out. And they sent me a letter being like, I literally grew up with the podcast, the channel, and now I'm watching Endgame. I'm like, yeah, like, it's like a decade of our lives. It's crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, if I have to pick my favorite actual movie of the year is Midsommar. It's from the director of Hereditary. Again, I talked about that. Like, that is my absolute favorite film this year. It's another one where I literally think about it all the time and what it means and the different things in it. Like, it seriously, like, messed me up watching that movie. I was like, oh God, it is... Ugh. But to me, Endgame just gets it because of that, what it's done, you know, like, and I've met so many good people because of Marvel Cinematic Universe and the MCU love and obviously podcasts and everything. Like, it's just, it encapsulated what the entire decade was to me, the rise of superhero films. So, yeah, I guess that's our discussion on our movies of the decade. So, we also want to know what your guys's would be for each year. I'm assuming there's going to be a lot of interesting picks because everybody has such a, like, wide scope and palette to pick from. Yeah. So please list some of those because I really want to see them year by year, if you will, please. And if you have one that you really feel, you know, special about, write a little paragraph or something because I'm interested to see what that movie is, because I've seen some people send in some, oh, here's my favorite movie of the decade. I'm like, oh, huh. Like, I never expected anybody to pick Prometheus, but I actually did see somebody pick Prometheus, and their argument for why, I was like, you know what, I can respect that. Like, so it is like that. It's all subjective, but I'm interested in seeing what you guys have. So there's that. Has brought us to the end of this podcast.
You got the rare hour and a half.
This is the longest, I think, podcast we've had this year, honestly. You know? It went pretty good. We discussed a lot. We covered the entire last decade, which is pretty good. You know, we don't do that here often. But overall, I just want to say thank you, everybody who's been with the CBC this year, this decade. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed it. We see the podcast numbers. We see majority of the comments. And trust me, we don't care about the negative ones because we see the positive ones, and that's the ones.
Thank you for the engagement anyway.
Yeah, thank you for giving us the clicks though, because those drive engagement, and believe it or not, those drive numbers too. So even if it's negative, it turns to positivity because you're still getting us paid.
So you tell us how much better Joker was and everything else.
Yes, please.
Do that. I want to see and hear it.
In every comment, because that gets us paid. And even if you use ad block, because the numbers stack up to more CMP. People.
Like, it's like something I said to a fan who wanted to bring something up to our attention, and this is great to let all of you know, that fans like you guys who send us all this amazing positive, and also even inform us when things you don't agree with that other people are talking about us, and you guys let us know. It shows us that there's so much more positivity in the world and than there is negativity. And the fact that we're able to come together as a community and try as hard as possible to more bring ourselves up together than anything else.
You got to understand it. Someone's life is so sad that they lash out at people if they're not diehard fans of Sam Raimi's Spider-Man. Like, they will straight up make death threats and threaten people and try to ruin lives because of an opinion. It's kind of sad, but trust us, we see all your good comments, all your good support throughout the years. It's kind of like heartwarming because we do get a lot, and it's like, oh man. And you know, as I've said before, I don't really try to respond because there's just an overwhelming amount that we get. And sometimes I do reply, which, you know, if you catch me at a good time, I'm just like, look, I'll reply to a bunch of them, but there's so many. But we see most of that, and it's kind of like, it is what it is, you know? We get the hate, we get the love. What's important, though, is I think, you know, we're delivering entertaining content. People love it. Like, people are clearly clicking it. And some of you people that are like, but look, somebody made a hate post about you. It got 400 views. Oh, this one got 5,000 views. Guess what? We do 5,000 views per half hour. So, 5,000 views in 3 months versus 5,000 views in half an hour? Come on. You know, it doesn't matter to us.
I also want to say thank you to all the CBC members who have welcomed me in this year. Even though I did partially start last year, but this has been the full first year I've been working nonstop with CBC, so I wanted to thank all of you for opening your arms out and accepting a very different point of view than the guys from time to time. So thank you guys for that. And I totally just gave you guys all peace sign and nobody saw it.
It's like, hey,
Yep.
I do that more often than I care to admit. Not necessarily a peace sign, but I do something and like, you're like, oh, no one can see that apart from me.
Right. So with that in mind, that's how we're going to end the podcast. Thank you, everybody, for a great decade and everything. We love and appreciate all you guys that are frequent in there. I could run down names from the last decade that I know off the top of my head, but I don't want to. You know who you are. We see you guys in the chats and the groups and everything, and it means the world to us. And we'll catch you guys in the new year, and let's look forward to a lot more new content to talk about.
Have a happy holiday.
Yes, and Happy New Year, everybody.